If you had asked me 6 months ago, I would have told you my marriage was solid. Not perfect, no fireworks after 7 years, but stable. Comfortable. We didn't have kids by choice, mostly hers, but we had the house, the routines, the inside jokes. I genuinely believed we were in that calm phase of life where nothing wild happens, and you're just safe. Camille worked in marketing and had a busy schedule, which I respected. I'm a contractor, self-employed, mostly residential work. Business had slowed a little recently, so I decided to use the downtime to finally renovate the basement, something I'd been putting off for years. She was oddly hesitant about the idea at first. Said it wasn't necessary, told me to focus on getting more contracts instead. But I pushed forward. I needed the distraction. The basement had always been a weird space. The walls were covered in cheap wood paneling from the 80s, the kind you just know is hiding rot or mice. The lighting was dim, and there was this constant cold draft, even when it was warm upstairs. Still, I figured I'd gut it, insulate it properly, and turn it into an office/rec room. A few days into the demolition, I noticed something odd. Behind one of the panels on the far wall, the frame didn't line up with the rest of the structure. It looked patched, almost like someone had intentionally sealed something off. The studs were newer, the nails cleaner, and when I knocked, it echoed just slightly like there was air behind it. That part of the basement never made sense anyway. The floor plan of the house showed nothing there, just solid wall. I grabbed my crowbar and started prying. What I found behind that wall was a door. An old, narrow wooden door with no visible handle on my side, just a series of long, rusty screws keeping it sealed shut. It didn't match the rest of the house, it was older, with strange etchings carved into the corners. Nothing creepy, just odd. Ornate in a way you don't usually see in basements. I didn't tell Camille. Not yet. She'd been distant lately, emotionally checked out, always tired, always glued to her phone. She used to cook with me, talk with me late into the night. Now she came home from late meetings, took long showers, and went straight to bed. I thought maybe it was just burnout. Now, I wasn't so sure. That door behind the wall felt like something more than just bad floor planning. It felt like a secret. And I was about to open it. It took me nearly an hour to unscrew the last of the rusted bolts holding the door in place. The wood groaned as I eased it open, like it hadn't been touched in decades. Dust billowed into my face, and the air inside smelled stale. Like paper, old perfume, and something faintly sour, the kind of scent that sticks in your nostrils long after you leave. Behind the door was a small, windowless room, maybe 8 by 10 feet, with low ceilings and worn wooden floorboards. No lighting, no outlets. Just a single bulb hanging from a cord, which miraculously still worked when I pulled the chain. The yellow light flickered to life, revealing what I can only describe as a personal shrine. There was a desk along the back wall, cluttered with notebooks and a few antique-looking objects, a broken locket, an old hairbrush, a cracked hand mirror. On the wall above it were pinned dozens of photographs. All of them featured Camille, some recent, some older, a few clearly taken without her knowing. But the ones that stopped me cold were of us, together. At the park. On vacation. Sleeping. And I don't mean selfies. I mean distant, grainy, long-lens shots. Someone had been watching us. Documenting us. My hands were shaking as I flipped through one of the notebooks. The handwriting wasn't mine. It wasn't Camille's either, not unless she suddenly started writing in tight, blocky script with symbols in the margins. Some of the entries were obsessive, others angry. There were names, mine, Camille's, and another I didn't recognize at the time, Nico. Next to his name were little notes. Waits on 3rd Street. Drives black Toyota Prius. Favors after 6 p.m. Camille prefers the back seat. It didn't click right away. I thought maybe Nico was a stalker. Maybe Camille was being followed. Maybe this was a threat to her, not by her. That's what I told myself as I closed the notebook and backed out of the room. But then I saw the receipt. It was tucked behind the mirror, half-folded and brittle with age. It was for a hotel, not in our town, but 2 hours away. Camille's name was on the guest line. So was Nico's. The date? 3 months ago. A Thursday. I remember that day. I had the flu. She brought me tea and told me she had a late client dinner she couldn't cancel. That's when my stomach dropped. It wasn't a stalker. It wasn't a threat. It was her hiding her second life right here in our home, behind a wall I wasn't supposed to touch. When Camille came home that night, I didn't say anything. I watched her walk past me like everything was normal. She kissed me on the cheek, told me she was exhausted, and disappeared into the bathroom. I just stood there, staring at the basement door. Because the room wasn't just a hiding place. It was a journal. A record. And maybe even a trophy case. I didn't sleep that night. Not a wink. I lay next to Camille, staring at the ceiling while she snored softly beside me, completely oblivious. I replayed everything, every moment in that room, every name in that notebook, every time she claimed to be working late or too tired for conversation or sex. It was like watching a horror movie frame by frame and realizing the monster had been sitting next to you all along. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called in sick to work. I told Camille I needed to fix a drainage issue in the basement, and for once, she didn't protest. She barely looked up from her phone. I caught a glimpse of a lock screen message as she turned away. You off today? No name. Just that. She put the phone in her pocket quickly, like it was a habit. When she left for work, I went straight back down to the hidden room. This time, I was more methodical. I took pictures of everything. Every page of the notebooks. Every item. Every name. I laid it out like evidence, because that's what it was. There were pages with lists of dates and dollar amounts. Some were labeled cash, some ride, some meet. Most included Nico's name or initials. I Googled him. Nothing. So I went for a different angle. I opened Camille's laptop, the one she kept in her home office and never let me touch. I'd watched her password enough times to know it, the name of her childhood dog, of course. I shouldn't have known it, but I'm glad I did. The browser history was cleaner than a hospital sheet. Like scrubbed clean. Except for one thing, a Gmail tab still logged in. I clicked. What I found was a second email address linked to her account. One she never told me about. It was full of Uber receipts, hotel confirmations, message notifications from Signal, and several digital receipts from gift shops and bars, most of them far from town. Each receipt matched a ride or cash entry in the notebook. I opened one Uber receipt and saw the name of the driver. Nico. Black Toyota Prius. Drop-off, Bellwood Motel. She'd been meeting him regularly. Weekly. Sometimes more. Always on nights she told me she had marketing calls or client mixers. All this time, she was literally being chauffeured to another man. I went numb. Numb isn't even the right word, it was like my heart detached and hovered over me, watching, waiting for my body to catch up. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive to her office and demand answers. But instead, I started digging into Nico. I wanted to know who the hell he was, this man she snuck around with. This man she listed like an appointment in her private books. He was 29. From what I could tell on social media, a fitness junkie and wannabe life coach. All abs and motivational quotes, most of which were grammatically incorrect. No wife. No kids. Just selfies, a car, and a gym. But then something else popped up. A tagged photo. Not of him, of Camille. Taken at a bar. Her arm around Nico's shoulder, both of them laughing, her drink halfway to her lips. She looked happy. Younger. Like the version of her I hadn't seen in years. I wasn't tagged. None of her friends had commented. It was buried deep in some old friend's feed. It had been up for 4 months. I was the last to know. That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not snapped. Cracked, the slow fracture that tells you something is about to break in full. I printed everything. Photos. Receipts. I made digital backups. USB sticks. Hard copies. I documented everything like I was preparing for war. Because I was. When Camille got home that night, she asked me how the basement repairs were going. I told her I found something behind the wall. She froze. Only for a second, but I caught it. The flicker in her eye. The subtle twitch in her lip. She recovered fast and asked what I meant. I lied and said it was just weird wiring. She relaxed and walked into the kitchen. I watched her pour a glass of wine and talk about her day like nothing had happened. But I knew better now. And the secret door downstairs wasn't just a mystery anymore. It was my proof. I didn't sleep that night. Not a wink. I lay next to Camille, staring at the ceiling while she snored softly beside me, completely oblivious. I replayed everything, every moment in that room, every name in that notebook, every time she claimed to be working late or too tired for conversation or sex. It was like watching a horror movie frame by frame and realizing the monster had been sitting next to you all along. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called in sick to work. I told Camille I needed to fix a drainage issue in the basement, and for once, she didn't protest. She barely looked up from her phone. I caught a glimpse of a lock screen message as she turned away. "You off today?" No name. Just that. She put the phone in her pocket quickly, like it was a habit. When she left for work, I went straight back down to the hidden room. This time, I was more methodical. I took pictures of everything. Every page of the notebooks. Every item. Every name. I laid it out like evidence, because that's what it was. There were pages with lists of dates and dollar amounts. Some were labeled cash, some ride, some meet. Most included Nico's name or initials. I Googled him. Nothing. So I went for a different angle. I opened Camille's laptop, the one she kept in her home office and never let me touch. I'd watched her password enough times to know it, the name of her childhood dog, of course. I shouldn't have known it, but I'm glad I did. The browser history was cleaner than a hospital sheet. Like scrubbed clean. Except for one thing, a Gmail tab still logged in. I clicked. What I found was a second email address linked to her account. One she never told me about. It was full of Uber receipts, hotel confirmations, message notifications from Signal, and several digital receipts from gift shops and bars, most of them far from town. Each receipt matched a ride or cash entry in the notebook. I opened one Uber receipt and saw the name of the driver. Nico. Black Toyota Prius. Drop-off, Bellwood Motel. She'd been meeting him regularly. Weekly. Sometimes more. Always on nights she told me she had marketing calls or client mixers. All this time, she was literally being chauffeured to another man. I went numb. Numb isn't even the right word, it was like my heart detached and hovered over me, watching, waiting for my body to catch up. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive to her office and demand answers. But instead, I started digging into Nico. I wanted to know who the hell he was, this man she snuck around with. This man she listed like an appointment in her private books. He was 29. From what I could tell on social media, a fitness junkie and wannabe life coach. All abs and motivational quotes, most of which were grammatically incorrect. No wife. No kids. Just selfies, a car, and a gym. But then something else popped up. A tagged photo. Not of him, of Camille. Taken at a bar. Her arm around Nico's shoulder, both of them laughing, her drink halfway to her lips. She looked happy. Younger. Like the version of her I hadn't seen in years. I wasn't tagged. None of her friends had commented. It was buried deep in some old friend's feed. It had been up for 4 months. I was the last to know. That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not snapped. Cracked, the slow fracture that tells you something is about to break in full. I printed everything. Photos. Receipts. I made digital backups. USB sticks. Hard copies. I documented everything like I was preparing for war. Because I was. When Camille got home that night, she asked me how the basement repairs were going. I told her I found something behind the wall. She froze. Only for a second, but I caught it. The flicker in her eye. The subtle twitch in her lip. She recovered fast and asked what I meant. I lied and said it was just weird wiring. She relaxed and walked into the kitchen. I watched her pour a glass of wine and talk about her day like nothing had happened. But I knew better now. And the secret door downstairs wasn't just a mystery anymore. It was my proof. The next morning, Camille was in unusually high spirits. She came down to breakfast humming some stupid pop song, barefoot, wearing one of my shirts like she hadn't spent the night wrapped around another man in the back of his Prius. She kissed me on the cheek, poured herself coffee, and acted like the last 12 hours hadn't happened. I was sitting there, spoon halfway to my mouth, watching her pretend to be someone she wasn't. And in that moment, I realized just how dangerous her lies really were. She was too good at this. Too smooth. It didn't matter what I knew. She'd always deny it. Always twist it. And if I confronted her now, without making her slip, I'd be painted as the jealous husband, the control freak, the emotionally distant one, the same narrative she'd probably been feeding Nico all along. So I changed tactics. I started playing her game. I casually mentioned I'd found something weird in the basement. Her head jerked up mid-sip. "What do you mean weird?" she asked, but too fast, like she already knew what I was referring to. I played dumb. Said I found an old utility room I never knew existed. "Probably just storage," I said. "Someone must have renovated around it years ago." She tried to act surprised, raised her eyebrows, widened her eyes, but her voice cracked when she asked, "Did you go in?" I said no. Told her I hadn't had time yet. I watched her carefully as she nodded, then changed the subject like her life depended on it. Later that day, she went out to run errands. I waited exactly 20 minutes, then checked the security cam footage from the front door. She hadn't gone to the store. She'd gone to the basement. I replayed it again and again, her quietly opening the door, peering over her shoulder, then disappearing down the steps. I waited 2 more hours before I went down after her. The hidden door was slightly ajar. Inside, things had been rearranged. Some of the notebooks were gone. So were a few photos. One of the walls had been scrubbed, you could still see the faded outline where thumbtacks had held up certain pieces. She was trying to cover her tracks. I don't know if she suspected how much I'd already seen. Maybe she thought she could still manipulate her way out of it, claim it was nothing, say it was old stuff from a friend or some weird art project. She didn't know I had everything documented. Duplicated. Archived. That night, I set my trap. I printed one of the most damning Uber receipts, a time-stamped ride to a hotel, with Nico's full name, from our house, paid on her card, and taped it to the bathroom mirror. Then I waited. She went in around 10 p.m., toothbrush in hand, humming again. The humming stopped. There was silence for a long time. Then I heard her laugh. Not the kind of laugh you expect. It was sharp. Mocking. Like she was daring me to confront her. She came out of the bathroom holding the receipt like it was a party invitation. "So you've been spying on me now," she said, voice high, theatrical. "How insecure can you be?" I didn't answer right away. I was watching her unravel. "You know what's pathetic," she said, waving the paper at me. "That you have nothing better to do than dig through my stuff and obsess over who I talk to." Still, I said nothing. She exploded. "Oh, come on, don't act like you're some innocent victim here. You've been emotionally absent for years. You never notice anything unless it's about you. So yeah, I found someone who actually listens to me. Who sees me." That's when I knew. She didn't feel guilt. She didn't even feel regret. She felt justified. She stormed off, slammed the door to the bedroom, and locked it like I was the one who'd betrayed her. I sat alone in the kitchen, receipts still crumpled in my hand, her words echoing in my head. Camille wasn't going to admit to anything. She was going to fight. Lie. Twist the truth until I looked like the villain. But I had something she didn't know about yet. The photos. The audio. The hidden room. And if she wanted war? I was ready. After her outburst, Camille gave me the silent treatment. Not the passive-aggressive kind where you exchange cold glances across the room, no, she went full performance mode. She began acting like she was the victim. Loud phone calls with her sister where she made sure I could hear every word, how she felt unsafe, how I was losing my mind, how she didn't know who I was anymore. She moved into the guest room by day 3. Left post-it notes instead of speaking. Took long showers with the door locked and her phone blasting music so I wouldn't accidentally hear anything. Her toothbrush and makeup slowly migrated to a separate drawer. She cooked only for herself. Her wine bottles disappeared into her room. I kept documenting everything. And not just the affair. I started tracking the gaslighting. That's what it had become, a full campaign to paint me as unstable. She would leave lights on in rooms I hadn't entered, then ask why I was forgetting things lately. I'd come home from errands to find the thermostat cranked to 85 and her in a hoodie, saying I was losing track of time and money. She even started talking about my mental health in front of friends, carefully seeding doubt like a politician prepping for an alibi. But she wasn't just manipulative, she was bold. One night, I heard her talking to Nico on speakerphone. Not whispering. Not hiding. Laughing. She said things like, "He's completely unraveling, and it won't be long now." She wanted me to hear it. That's when it hit me, she was trying to push me into exploding, hoping I'd snap, yell, maybe break something. Something she could use later in court. She was laying a trap, and honestly, I almost walked into it. Instead, I kept calm. Cold. Clinical. I documented the conversation. I saved every message. I even installed a cam in the hidden room, and good thing, too. Because a few days later, she brought Nico into our home. It was early afternoon. I'd stepped out for an appointment deliberately. I knew she'd check the driveway and assume I'd be gone a while. I watched it all later on the camera feed. She took him downstairs. Straight into the room. They laughed. Kissed. Talked about getting rid of all this before he finds it. He flipped through the notebooks like they were souvenirs, then dropped them in a duffel bag. But before they left, Nico turned to her and said something I'll never forget. He told her that once the divorce went through, she'd get the house, and he'd move in. She didn't argue. She kissed him instead. That was the moment I stopped feeling heartbreak and started feeling strategy. I called my lawyer that night. Told him everything. I filed for divorce the next morning without telling her. I froze our joint accounts, secured the house deed, and sent everything, photos, receipts, video files, to a private investigator and a friend in law enforcement. Camille had no idea what was coming. But she would. And it wouldn't be a post-it note. I had the papers served on a Tuesday. She was home, lounging on the couch with a face mask on, flipping through some trashy magazine like she hadn't detonated a nuclear bomb under our marriage. The doorbell rang. She answered it barefoot, wine glass in hand. I was watching from the hallway. When the server handed her the envelope, she blinked like she didn't understand the words, "You've been served." She laughed at first. A dry, dismissive snort, like she thought it was a joke. Then she opened the envelope and her face changed. It didn't fall. It cracked. Her expression flipped from smug to stunned in 1 second flat. She read maybe 3 lines before turning toward me, wide-eyed, mouth slightly open, trying to recalibrate. "You're actually doing this," she said, like I'd just betrayed her. I nodded. For once, I didn't speak. I just watched her, the way she blinked fast, like trying to hold back tears she didn't actually feel. The way her grip tightened on the papers as her mind scrambled for a plan B. And then the performance began. She threw the papers on the floor and stormed into the kitchen. "I can't believe you'd humiliate me like this," she shouted. "What are you going to tell people? That your fragile little ego couldn't handle a woman who needed more?" I still didn't respond. That's what made her spiral faster. She knocked over the wine glass. Deliberately. Watched it shatter, like she wanted a reaction. Still nothing. She started screaming about the house, her name on the deed, how I was abandoning her in her time of emotional need. She even accused me of manipulating her into the affair by being emotionally distant. That one nearly made me laugh. Then she pivoted again, went full gaslight. "I don't even know if what you think happened actually happened," she said. "You've been acting paranoid for weeks. Maybe you should get help. Like real help. Because this isn't you, baby." Baby. That word used to mean something. Now it was just noise. She tried touching my arm, softening her voice, even crying. But the tears weren't real. Not like mine had been. "I know everything," I said, finally. That shut her up. "I know about Nico. I know about the motel. I know what you two did in the basement. And I have it all documented. So you can drop the act now." Her face twitched. Then the rage came back. "You had cameras? Are you seriously stalking me in my own house?" There it was. The deflection. The pivot to victimhood. The moral high ground she thought she could still claim. I had proof, Camille. The thing you've been lying about since day one. That's when she lost it completely. Screaming. Throwing things. Accusing me of abuse, of emotional torture, of invading her privacy. But all of it sounded hollow now. Because she knew I had her. And I wasn't playing anymore. I told her the locks would be changed in 72 hours, per the temporary court order. That she'd receive instructions through her lawyer. That she could take what she needed, but I'd be home while she packed and she'd be supervised. That hit her hardest. "You're treating me like I'm some criminal." I looked her dead in the eye. "You broke this marriage. You just didn't think I'd be the one to sweep up the glass." She didn't respond. She just stared at me, breathing heavily, face blotched with rage and panic. She wasn't in control anymore. And she hated it. The next 48 hours were eerily quiet. Camille barely spoke. She didn't try to apologize, beg, scream, or seduce her way back in. That scared me more than anything. Because when Camille goes silent, she's not processing, she's plotting. She stayed in the guest room with the door locked. Her Uber ride stopped. Nico vanished. No wine bottles clinking in the sink, no phone calls late at night. Just silence. I knew better than to take that as surrender. I checked the basement cam. Sure enough, she'd gone back down there twice. Both times in the middle of the night. One time she brought a box, the other she left with a duffel bag. I checked after she left and found a few more missing photos, 2 of the older notebooks, and a small safe I hadn't noticed before it'd gone. This wasn't over. The day she was scheduled to pack her things, I had a friend stay with me for legal protection. I didn't trust her alone in the house. When she arrived, she acted civil, even smiled. But her eyes? Cold. She moved with fake grace, brushing past me like I was just another obstacle in her way. She packed quickly. Methodically. Too methodically. That's when I noticed she wasn't packing clothes. She was pulling random documents from drawers, digging through my office files, grabbing electronics. I stopped her and told her to stick to personal belongings. She played dumb, then flipped the switch again, tears, shaking voice, accusing me of trying to erase her identity. But the mask was cracking. Before she left, she turned to me and said something I'll never forget. "You have no idea what you've done. You think this is about an affair? You don't even know half of it. She said it like a warning. Then she left. That night, I went back into the basement, searching every inch. That's when I found it, tucked behind the insulation near where the safe had been. A small, faded envelope labeled to be destroyed. Inside were three things: a flash drive, a printed photo of Camille pregnant, a copy of a birth certificate. But the father's name wasn't mine. It was Nico's. Except, we never had kids. Camille and I were always waiting for the right time. That's what she told everyone. I plugged in the flash drive. Dozens of files. Messages. Images. Photos of Camille with a baby, their baby. Her and Nico at a hospital. At a park. The child was at least 4 years old. She had a second life. And I never knew. The night she said she was at work late, or staying with her sister, or getting drinks with coworkers, she was with them. With him. She lied about not wanting children because she'd already had one with someone else. And she never told me. This wasn't just betrayal. This was sociopathic. I sat there, staring at the photos, hearing my own breath echo off the basement walls, feeling my stomach twist into something I didn't recognize. This wasn't a marriage anymore. It was a carefully constructed illusion. One she'd designed so precisely that not even I had seen the cracks until now. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I sat in the basement, staring at the photograph of Camille holding that child, her real child. Nico's child. A boy who looked maybe 5 years old, dressed in a red hoodie and a beaming smile, wrapped around a woman who'd convinced me she never wanted children. I kept asking myself the same question on a loop. Why? Why marry me? Why lie for this long? Why build an entire life with me when she had another? It wasn't love. It couldn't be. Control? Image? Financial security? Whatever the reason, Camille had weaponized the idea of a family, used me as a front while she played house in the shadows. By the time I finally walked back upstairs, my chest felt like it had a vice around it. She came by later that afternoon alone. I hadn't told her what I'd found yet. I didn't have to. I think she knew. She stepped inside like she owned the place, even after everything. Same perfume. Same smug face. I forgot a few things, she said casually, as if the last 48 hours hadn't burned our entire marriage to the ground. I didn't say a word. I just placed the flash drive and the envelope on the kitchen table and stepped back. She froze mid-step. Her eyes darted to the items. She didn't move for 5 full seconds. Then she whispered, "Where did you find that?" Still no response. "You went through my things?" she snapped, but her voice was thinner now, shaky. Unstable. I let the silence speak. Then she changed tactics, fast. "It's not what you think," she started. "It's complicated, I can explain." "Is that your son?" I asked. Calm. Too calm. She blinked. Once. Twice. Then she said something that made the air leave my lungs. "He was never supposed to be part of this life." This life. Like our marriage was just one of several timelines she was juggling. I stared at her, stunned by how cold those words felt. "You lied about everything," I said. "Even about wanting kids. You had a whole child, Camille. A child with the man you were cheating on me with. And you just, what? Hid it like it was some side project?" Her face contorted. Rage. Panic. Maybe even regret, but not the kind that comes from hurting someone. The kind that comes from getting caught. "You were never supposed to find that room," she hissed. "It wasn't meant for you. And neither was the truth, right?" She slammed her hand on the table. "I gave you a good life. Stability. A house. A partner who put up with your dull little routines. You think Nico was going to marry me? No. He's a loser with a car and a sob story. I stayed with you because you were safe. You were useful. That was it. That was the real Camille. Not the crying wife. Not the victim. Just a calculating woman who had been playing a long game and was now scrambling to stay ahead of the collapse. I didn't say another word. I picked up the envelope, slid it across the table toward her, and told her she had 10 minutes to leave the house, this time, for good. She tried one last trick, tears, of course. Said I was overreacting. Said we could go to therapy. Said she'd make it up to me. I looked her dead in the eye. You already did, Camille. You just made it crystal clear who you really are. And then I walked away. I didn't look back. Camille moved out that same day. No dramatic goodbye. No apology. Just the sound of her car backing down the driveway as I stood at the window, watching her disappear, this time, for real. I thought I'd feel relief. Instead, I felt nothing. It wasn't numbness. It was like the pain had scorched through every nerve in my body and left only silence behind. The divorce moved quickly, too quickly for her. I had documentation. Footage. Voice recordings. Financial records. The flash drive was a nuclear bomb in family court. Her attorney tried to play damage control, but there was no controlling a wildfire when the entire forest was made of lies. She didn't get the house. She didn't get a dime of spousal support. In fact, she had to pay me back for money siphoned from our joint accounts, most of it transferred to a card she used for her secret family weekends with Nico and the child. And the best part? Camille was served a restraining order for attempting to destroy evidence. The footage from the hidden camera showed her trying to burn one of the notebooks in a backyard fire pit. That was the last straw for the judge. It was over. But the scars remained. I had to sit in my own home, the house I thought we'd grow old in, and scrub away every piece of her that had embedded itself into my life. The smell of her shampoo still lingered on the pillow. There were scratches on the wall from where she threw her suitcase during that last meltdown. Even after she was gone, her chaos hung in the air like dust after demolition. I started therapy, real therapy. Not the kind where your partner manipulates the sessions and sleeps with the therapist. No more lies. No more gaslighting. Just honest, painful work. For a while, I thought I'd never trust again. How could I? The person I shared my bed with was running a side life in another zip code. She had a child I didn't know about. She used me. Slept beside me. Lied with her head on my chest every night for years. But slowly, very slowly, I began to rebuild. Not for revenge. Not to win. Just to live. I learned that closure doesn't come with some dramatic confrontation or poetic justice. It comes in the small things, sleeping peacefully. Laughing again. Waking up and not feeling like your soul has a hole torn through it. And to the people out there who've been through something similar, who've loved someone who lied to them with a smile, I'll say this. You're not crazy. You're not weak. You're not broken. You were just loyal to someone who never deserved it. And now, you get to be loyal to yourself.